Thank you.
Okay.
We ready?
Yep.
All right, it's 12:01. I'll call the meeting to order. And first ask if there is any public comments.
I know, Mr. Chairman, we had someone, I believe from FHWA, had indicated they may want to make some comments today.
Ms. Brady, are you with us?
Yes, I am. I really apologies, I did not make that comment, but I think is Condat here today? Condat was really leading the charge in the effort to prioritize this TIP amendment that you're going to be discussing today. So Condat has a lot of the details, as I think does Rob, but encourage you to take this up as it could potentially jeopardize funding as a result of Buy America waiver that's going to possibly be put in place next week. So sorry for that brief introduction, but Rob or DOT, if you want to pick it up and give a little more detail, that'd be appreciated.
Well, we'll certainly do that when we get to the action item. I just was under the understanding, Jennifer, that you wanted to provide some public comment to that effect.
We have been attending all of these emergency special meetings, so appreciate you entertaining this today. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. I believe you can move on, Mr. Chairman.
All right, we'll turn now to the approval of the minutes from our January 14th meeting. They were circulated. Are there any comments or corrections?
Move approval, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Coleman, is there a second?
Second.
Was that Mayor Blackburk?
Yes, it was.
Good afternoon. Motion has been made and seconded. If there's no further comment, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Minutes are adopted. We'll turn now to staff reports, and Matt, I'll turn the floor over to you.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Jason, I'll keep this relatively brief. I greatly appreciate everybody joining us today because we do have a very important business item under 5A, which we'll get to in a couple minutes. But a couple of items I wanted to touch on, and I'll also touch on these at the policy board meeting in a couple of weeks. Very pleased to announce our upcoming annual meeting. We'll be sending out the RSVPs in another week or so. But this year's annual meeting will be held on June 3rd. It will be a lunchtime meeting as we had last year. And this year we'll be meeting east of the river at the UConn Alumni Center. And our guest speaker, I want to thank Cheryl Assis, our Director of Public Safety and Homeland Security, for helping to line this up. One of the voices of the UConn Huskies, Joe D'Ambrosio, will be our keynote speaker at our annual meeting. So really looking forward to that. We're also bringing back our annual awards program. Those of you who have been around CROG for a while, you may remember, we used to have an awards program. So we're excited to be bringing that back. We're going to have two categories. One category will be an award for regional excellence. It's an effort to recognize towns who are doing good things in the area of service sharing, for example, and regional collaboration. And then we're going to have more of an individual-based award called a Beacon of the Region. And we're looking to recognize individuals that have made significant contributions to our region. So really looking forward to our annual meeting on June 3rd. And I want to thank Aaliyah Miller and all the members of the CROG team who are working to put that together. Next item I wanted to touch on, for those of you who are social media addicts or YouTubers, we do have a YouTube channel. Want to make you aware of that, the CROG Connection. And we are increasingly using that to host a lot of informative initiatives. For example, our legislative breakfast will be featuring there. We frequently will post policy board meetings. Our staff conducted a recent tour in the town of Mansfield, looking at the great work they're doing in the area of sustainability. So for those of you, who do subscribe to the channel, really want to highlight the work we're doing there and draw your attention to it. And again, want to thank Aaliyah Miller, our communications manager, for her good work in organizing that. And then I'll wrap up by talking about our upcoming policy board meeting on March 25th. We are going to have two presenters, two speakers. We normally don't like to do that, but sometimes just given the schedule, we need to accommodate it. So we're going to start off with a presentation from Dr. Jordan Grossman, who is the superintendent of schools in Canton. And Dr. Grossman, he leads our school security committee. You may know that we have a school security committee. We've had one for many years. Cheryl Assis supports the committee. They're going to talk about the good work they're doing to help make schools in our region more safe. And then at 12:30, we're going to be joined by Commissioner Garrett Eucalito from the Connecticut DOT. Commissioner Eucalito is once again visiting all 9 COGs in the state to talk about the work that the DOT is doing in our region. I imagine he'll touch on things like the Greater Hartford Mobility Program, probably be in a position to talk a little bit about microtransit and any number of initiatives, as well as the federal funding challenges that we're facing today. So we will have a busy board meeting on March 25th. That completes my report, Mr. Chairman. Happy to take any questions that you or others may have.
Thank you, Mr. Hart. Are there any questions or comments for Mr. Hart or his team? All right, so a couple of dates to mark down. I just took the opportunity for the March 25th meeting. I just extended how much time I'm blocking off for that by another half an hour, just to assume that that's what's going to happen. It would be great if we could have others do the same. Okay, turning to business items. We're going to talk now about the emergency tip amendments for the NEVI program, and this is Matt and Rob Alois.
Yes, just very quickly, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm going to turn the floor over to Rob shortly. But the executive committee, you do have the ability to stand in for the policy board when needed. So you can act on the policy board's behalf. That's clearly stated under our bylaws, and it's one of the main reasons why we have an executive committee. So this is an important item that came to our attention relatively recently. And the DOT has asked all of the COGs and MPOs in the state to take action on this by March 12th, which is tomorrow. So instead of trying to call a special policy board meeting, we knew that we had the executive committee meeting on the books. That's why this agenda item is before you today. Rob, if you could explain more fully, please.
Yeah, thank you, Matt. Exactly. We're bringing this to you. We heard a couple weeks ago that there was some funding in jeopardy if it was not passed very soon. Typically, we take tip amendments to the Transportation Committee, and they are vetted in detail there and then brought to Policy Board. But due to the time-sensitive nature of this, basically on February 10th, the U.S. DOT released a notice of proposed modification to the waivers of the Buy American requirements for EV chargers. And basically what that did was it said that any unobligated funds that were going to be used to buy electric vehicle chargers that were already awarded or formula driven to states, that they would have to be under a new requirement to have 100% American components if they're not obligated by a certain date. The big problem with that is right now there is a provision that they have to have 55% American components in these chargers, which is doable in the market right now, but there is no equipment available that is 100% American made for electric vehicles. So that would pretty much kill the opportunity to obligate these funds unless these were obligated very soon. DOT has said they need to submit their package to FHWA this Friday. So they requested all the MPOs act on this item by tomorrow. So this is in front of you right now. Basically, under this NEVI program, it's the National Electric Vehicle Infrastructure Program. We're in phase 1 and 2 of that, which is allowing funding for electric vehicle charging stations intermittently along the interstate system and freeway systems, so that folks can drive long distances and know that there are chargers located every so often along the interstates. So this incentivizes that. Folks have already applied for this program on the public and private side and been awarded these funds, but they have to be obligated. Thus far, CONDOT has obligated, of the 52 million that they are due under this program, they've obligated a little over 7. So they have another 44 million to obligate, and they have to do that right away via this TIP amendment. So it's a statewide 44 million. There are plenty of a portion of that is within the CROG region, located off exits, mainly in Hartford and out in, I believe, Willimantic, but along the interstate systems through our region. And so we're bringing this in front of you. All the MPOs need to pass this, or else we risk losing this funding statewide. So CROG would recommend, or staff would recommend, that CROG Executive Committee approves this and approves the TIP amendment contained within. As mentioned, it's 44 million additional of federal funding for a total of 63 million when you include all the matches to that, with almost 9 million already being obligated. So the difference between 63 and 8 is the total cost, but 44 of that is federal that risks being lost. So thanks. I'm free to take any questions. Jen Pakasha is on for DOT, and she can answer any questions also, but
Yeah, thank you so much, Rob. Mr. Chairman, if you wouldn't mind, maybe we can recognize Jen for a minute or two. Jen, anything you'd like to add to Rob's very comprehensive overview?
No, I think he covered everything pretty well. But yeah, if there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer them. Yeah, it's very important that we move this forward, so we don't lose that 44 million.
Great,
So-
thank you.
I would like to start with a question, and it's probably for Matt. Because the executive board is going to function as the policy board here, is there any special verbiage that we need to include in a motion to do that, or do we just how do we exert that authority?
No, you can just make a motion as the executive committee.
Okay. Are there any other questions from members of the executive committee?
Mr. Chairman, I move approval of the motion. I just, with one caveat, it would have been appreciated if at least an informational email had gone out to the members of the Transportation Committee.
Duly noted.
Second, Steve Stefano.
Thank you, Steve. Motion has been made and seconded. Is there further discussion on the request? All in favor, please say aye.
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 Aye. Aye.
Are there any opposed? Motion is approved. We'll turn now to a discussion of our legislative update. I'll recognize Matt and Donna Hamsey-Carocha.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much, Mr. Chairman, and thank you to the executive committee for your support of the emergency TIP amendment. We appreciate that. And we duly note Mr. Coleman's comment. So legislative update, Donna Hamsey, Carocha, and I, we want to touch on a couple of things. We'll start off by talking about our recent legislative breakfast, which we held last week on March 5th at the Legislative Office Building. Thought the event was successful in the fact that many of our policy board members, many of you, were able to attend. We greatly appreciate that. We would have liked to have seen more of our state reps and state senators in attendance. That's always a bit of a challenge with the calendar, as Donna could talk about in a minute or two. But also want to thank our legislative committee chair, Lisa Thomas, as well as the vice chair, Mayor Connor Martin, for their good work in helping to put it together and then presenting many of our agenda items at the meeting. Donna, would you like to add a few comments as well? And our chairman, Mr. Bowser, was very active too as well in terms of helping to explain items on the agenda.
Sure. Thanks, Matt. Good afternoon, everyone. So I totally concur with Matt's comments. The one, things I've been sort of thinking about as I was reflecting on the breakfast was really just the opportunity to engage with our legislative delegation perhaps earlier and more often, I think, than just the legislative breakfast. While I think it's great to have you all in the building, I think we should continue to do that because your presence in the building is noted, and everyone that I was, trying to collect during the breakfast, knew that we were having a breakfast. They had heard from all of you, so I think that's great. I think one, the couple things that I was thinking that perhaps we could implement leading up to the next year is really engaging the legislative delegation earlier in our legislative creation process. So as we create the agenda, maybe they would like to be engaged a bit more and could offer some good insight to us. But then in addition to that, perhaps, having two events rather than just one. So one sort of leading ahead of the session or even just right at the beginning of the session. And then sort of a report card session we have with them as we go through the public hearing and committee process to see sort of where things have landed based on our agenda and, how they've been helpful. And I think it has sort of helped them feel engaged, but also accountable to you all and part of this sort of process in getting our agenda over the finish line. So I'll leave that there, and I'm certainly obviously open to conversation.
I think those are great ideas, Donna. I can certainly see where the thought process is going and get stronger buy-in from area legislators by involving them in the formulation process. Given where we are in the calendar in what is a pretty short session, is there would it be worth us trying to organize an opportunity to have everybody like up in the Capitol on a session day, over by the velvet ropes kind of a thing, when we knew that there was an agenda item? And I get that, you get like a day's notice, but when we knew there was an agenda item that was important or that was on our legislative agenda?
So that's a great question. And so I would say that, I think based on the chaos of the calendar, as you sort of alluded, getting there like on a day that, or being able to anticipate a day when a proposal would be called, I think would be a little bit difficult. But the one day that I was sort of thinking about in anticipation of this question, honestly, is there's restaurant night. So at the Capitol, like all the restaurants come up and they display their restaurants, and there's an opportunity to taste, their food. And the legislators are obsessed with that evening because they get all this free food. They get to walk around. I mean, and it's typically the speaker and sometimes the Senate, because they're a little bit finicky, but will allow or afford for that time for them to sort of walk through the restaurants. It might be a good opportunity for you all to be in the building on that day, because then you can have that social interaction and even taste some of the food that's offered. But it's a great opportunity to catch your legislator in a time when they're sort of walking about the building.
Do you know the date of that yet?
I think, yeah, I was just pulling that up. I believe it's in April. Let me just double check that. Let's see. So it looks like it's April 29th. So it's at the end of the month in April. That may be a little late only because the session ends like the following week. But let's see, there are other events happening ahead of that you could potentially come for. And then of course, any day that they're in session is also a good day to be up there, to your point, Mr. Chairman, because, I can help to call them out off the floor. You all are in communication with them, making them aware that you're in the building. So any day really works. I was just thinking of that as being more of like a social opportunity to engage with the membership and then also get you guys some good food while you're there. But certainly any day, any session day works for that.
Okay, I'll put a hold on the 29th and hopefully others will as well.
Jason,
And I can certainly, sorry, just
Jason, I have
one
a
last
question.
thing.
I unfortunately can't raise my hand. I was under the impression that when we do the legislative, Bill Morrison from Stafford, by the way. I was under the impression that when we did the legislative breakfast, that you all already made contact with our legislators. I'm willing to do that personally to mine if you don't do that, but I was surprised that my two reps did not show up there. Do you typically invite them, or is that my job?
We look for both. So we will send out an invitation, certainly, Bill, but we encourage you to do the same.
Okay, sorry to butt in like that. I just couldn't get it.
Not at all. The last thing I was just going to say is that I will certainly give Matt all of the days that I currently know are on the calendar for session days. So if there's one or two that work for some or all, you certainly can come up on all of them, or just on a few that work for you. It's totally up to your schedules.
Thank you so much. Sorry, Mr. Chairman.
If I could, just kind of unrelated to the happenings that are up there. One of the things that has been great is the legislative updates you're providing. That's really helpful in terms of tracking the bills that I want to submit testimony on. And I appreciate that. So thank you.
Done.
So before we get to the legislative calendar, Mr. Chairman, maybe Mayor Martin, Connor, anything you want to add from your perspective, serving as the vice chair of the committee?
No, I actually just wanted to kind of echo what Jason said and thanking Donna. I briefly talked to Donna about helping me with the possibility of writing testimony and submitting it. Being mayor, just like the rest of us on the call, quite busy, especially if you're in the middle of your budget season. We just got that done. So Donna's just been a great resource in the legislative updates, the bill schedule. For me, kind of being the first time really diving into this legislative session, it's been incredibly helpful for me. So I hope it has been for others too. But Donna's been great for us. So just learn a lot right now.
Thank you. We appreciate the feedback and your leadership.
Thank you.
Is there anything else we want to cover on the legislative front, given where we are right now? We're still in the public hearing process. We're coming up on JF deadlines. Then there's kind of the eye of the hurricane. Is there anything else we should be keeping our eyes on at the moment?
Yeah, I can jump in. Just so I was sort of going to go through what to expect. So you laid it out really well, Jason. That is essentially where we are right now. We're winding on public hearings. So it's very busy this week, and then next week there'll be a few, but most on Friday next week, the larger A committees and the larger B committees will start to wind down their business. They have been having meetings where they've JF'd bills, some of them just because they have so much before them that they've just been trying to clear their calendars. It's in the week of the 23rd is really when the bulk of the committees that we're, really engaging with will have their JF deadlines. And the JF deadline is essentially the joint favorable deadline, which for folks that maybe don't know is when the committees take final action on a bill. And so in whatever form the bill comes before them, they may at that time also amend the bill based on the committee's will, the committee's chair's will, and any engagement they've had with proponents, during the committee process. And then the bill will be JF'd. And once that happens, the bill then, goes into the nonpartisan offices for a file to be created. And the file is essentially a great resource. For those that don't know, it's essentially a nice summary of the actual bill and what it does. It provides, municipal and state impacts, and then it also provides a fiscal note for the particular legislation. And so post, committee work, which is really, again, that week of the 23rd for the majority of the committees, to Jason's point, it really is sort of a calm after that. The budget committees are still deliberating, and their deadlines are really at the beginning of April. So there's sort of like a lull between the larger group of committees and then the budget committees. But once all of the committees have completed their work, including the money committees, there is sort of this lull between committee the printing process and the General Assembly just meeting in general session. And that's sort of when the bills start to meet the calendar, and then referrals from the calendar to potentially other committees of cognizance to be, to again be heard, and then maybe even provided for final action. But what I'd say in terms of things, to be thinking about, and certainly with the bill tracking system, I will be updating the bill tracking so that post committee deadlines, any of the bills that did not make it through the process, I will, remove from our bill tracking so that they don't show up, and that you can sort of get a better flavor of what bills are still alive and well, and that will be moving through the process. But as you're, having conversations, the bills that have made it that far that are relevant to our policy agenda, as you have conversations with your legislative delegation members, I would just continually remind them of the legislation that's important to the region.
So thank you for that overview. I have a question, and I've been tracking bills for a very long time. But one of the things that I've never been able to do well, and I'm wondering if there's an easier way to do this, especially for layman's, is when a bill does not get out of committee, but it comes back as an amendment and gets tacked into something else. How do we easily track that? I've been doing this 20 years. I have no idea how to do that, other than reading every amendment, which is what I used to do in agriculture, which is nobody's got time for that.
So what I would say is that really, like, in my view, is the only way to do that. So obviously in the work that I'm doing, like, I'm constantly talking to legislators. They know, where I have priorities. And so in some instances in the relationships I have, I get a heads up on an amendment that may be coming that I would be interested in seeing, that I wouldn't have otherwise paid attention to, because to your point, it's on another bill or it's being added to a bill that I was not tracking for that particular client. But the short answer is to read all the amendments, unfortunately, and which is what we have to do in order to make sure nothing gets through.
Was really hoping for the secret sauce.
I wish there was one.
You're not the only one. I was actually going to raise the same question, so thanks for bringing that up, Jason.
But whoever brings that up as an AI solution is going to make like an absolute.
Because I used to run into the same thing when I was doing congressional affairs, at the federal level.
Anything else we should cover on the legislative front? Okay, well, much more to come for sure. Thank you very much, Donna.
You got it.
Okay, we're going to turn back to Matt, and we're going to talk about the strategic visioning session.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. You members will recall that we had planned this for the morning of February 25th. And we were really excited and looking forward to it. But unfortunately, the inclement weather led to us postponing the strategic visioning session or event. I do firmly believe that every couple of years, every board should engage in this type of exercise, especially where you've had a fair amount of turnover, like we had with the recent November 25 elections. So we are looking to reschedule that session. We've put out a couple of dates. You should be able to access the poll, the doodle poll, in today's packet. And I would ask either Doreen or Pauline to put it in the chat if you wouldn't mind. But the two dates we are looking at now, these are also policy board meetings days, which you seem to indicate a preference for. It would be either April 22nd or May 27th. So it would be the morning from 9 to 11:30, and then we'd have the policy board meeting to follow. I understand that's a pretty significant time commitment during this time of year, and really appreciate your time, and hopefully many of you will be able to participate in this, because again, we think it's important. And Donna Hamzy will help me to facilitate it. What do we hope to accomplish? I think we're going to start off, or we will start off, by reviewing our existing strategic priorities. And those of you who've been around CROG for a little while, you participated in the creation of what we call our strategic playbook. And the strategic playbook outlines our 8 strategic priorities. everything from governance and communications through public sector workforce development and shared services. We also have things in there like our regional housing strategy, which we've been working on, and road safety, multi-use trail projects. So we'll give you a good update in terms of where things stand there. Conditions have changed a little bit, as you know, especially at the federal level. So federal infrastructure funding, we've got to be strategic in terms of how we pursue that. So again, we'll review where things stand with the current list of our 8 strategic priorities. But then importantly, we want to save plenty of time in this session to learn about other topics. What other topics would you like to explore as a board? And these things could potentially become strategic priorities for us in the future. And we do have this framework that we use when we're determining what's going to become a strategic priority, and what we're going to invest resources in. But even short of that, we want to hear what other topics would you like to explore? And we'll give you some examples of things to think about. And we want you to bring what's top of mind for you. For example, we know that all of our towns, right? All of our towns are dealing with very significant budgetary pressures. So what more might we, as a council of governments, might want to seek from the state or even the federal government in terms of funding opportunities or revenue diversification at the local level, at the municipal level? On the expenditure side of the budget, what more, if anything, do you want to explore in terms of service sharing? Service sharing maybe at a greater scale than what we have traditionally done. Traditionally we have focused on service sharing between a couple of towns, or maybe between a town and a school district. Good stuff. Yes, it can certainly save money and it can lead to enhanced services. But if we really want to think about doing this at a greater scale, how do we explore that? So that's kind of one set of topics there, looking at the budgetary pressures you all are facing. Another thing, we would suggest for conversation are the workforce and service challenges that many of our towns are facing. For example, we know that recruiting and retention for firefighters and EMS is a significant issue in our state and in our region. Is that a topic you would like to explore in more detail? Maybe the notion of creating apprenticeships and trainee programs at the municipal level, and what role could CROG play in all of that? So that's kind of a second big bucket that we would suggest, looking at our workforce and service challenges here in our region. And then a last suggestion would be, what are the signature infrastructure projects that you want to focus on in the coming years? Understanding that federal funding, it's at a bit of a premium right now, especially for these large scale projects. But looking at the Greater Hartford Mobility Program, for example, how do we best support the DOT to see that come to fruition? And recall, the mobility program, this would involve some really significant things like capping portions of 84 and 91 and removing the mixed master in East Hartford to provide for more access to the river. And how do we best leverage the Connecticut River as an asset for our region, for economic, community development, and quality of life purposes? When I travel around the country, and I'm sure many of you feel the same way, when I look at how other communities have leveraged and developed their waterfront, including historic cities that are making a comeback, places like Detroit and Cleveland, the great work they're doing on their waterfront. I think here in our region, we're just scratching the surface. So what more might we want to do there? The continued investments in the Hartford line, this concept of bringing CT Fast Track east of the river, extending service to East Hartford and Vernon and Manchester and further east, all the way out to Mansfield. So what are the signature infrastructure projects you might want to focus on in the years ahead as well? So again, just to recap, we're going to start off with a good discussion of where things stand with our current list of 8 priorities. But then we want to hear your ideas. What do you want to talk about? What do you want to learn more about? What might you want us to potentially identify as strategic priorities for CROG in the near term and in the future? So I am hoping that many of our executive committee members, we rely on you very heavily. I appreciate all the time that you give us. I know it's a lot, but if you could devote a morning on one of those 2 days, and we'll go with whatever date works for most of you, we'd really love to have you, and we want to hear from you, because at the end of the day, we're here to serve you. Don, anything you might want to add based on your experience in facilitating similar retreats for other organizations?
No, I think you sort of laid it out really nicely, Matt. I think it's just an opportunity again to come together and again further define the CROG region and what your priorities are and who you are as a region. And from my work, being able to take that identity and translate that into legislative items that could help further those policy initiatives or initiatives that you would like to see happen.
Thanks, Donna. And again, I know times are very challenging, right? Financially, it can be hard to think of it in this moment, especially when you're in the thick of budget. But I often think about what might we want to accomplish here to truly elevate our region? To elevate our region from maybe more of a national perspective. We've got so much to offer, right? Many of our communities have a great quality of life. How do we best promote our region as a place for people to live and to invest in? And let's think about it a little bit from that perspective too. So I'd love to hear from you in terms of what you'd like to see us accomplish at the retreat. Don't need to get into a lot of detail today, but what are your thoughts? You looking forward to this? Is it something you think you can reasonably carve out time, again, during a very busy time of year?
From my perspective, Matt, it sounds like it would be time very well spent, and it is a day, but it's only one day. You're not asking for a day a week. You're asking for, a good dialogue with everybody around a table. That seems like a reasonable request as far as I see it.
Yeah, just to echo, very much looking forward to this sort of discussion, Matt. We've talked a little bit about better leveraging the riverfront, really making the capital region the destination of Connecticut, not just the pass through to New York or Boston. So we should be the reason why you stop in Connecticut. So a lot of work to be done there. A lot of shared visions need to be pulled together. So we're all moving in the same direction. So very much looking forward to being part of this discussion. Thanks for putting, Matt.
Thank you.
I concur, Matt. I think it's a great idea. I've taken part in prior ones, and I think it also gives an opportunity for the members of the policy board to get to know each other better and interact with each other, which and rather than just being at a normal meeting. So I think it's a great idea and look forward to it as well.
Thank you, John.
Any other feedback on the strategic vision session?
Just that Mansfield would be supportive.
I already put in my time to vote. I voted for my date.
Yeah, I did the same. Okay.
Windsor, so Mr. Chairman, just want to share with my colleagues here, I won't be there to represent Windsor, but we'll definitely ask Mr. Souza to be there. Work commitments, just Wednesday mornings are protected time, so I can't move those meetings. So that's how it goes. Right, Connor? That's how it goes.
No, we understand that, Mayor, and it's the calendar is a little challenging to manage, and we appreciate all the time you give us here at CROG.
Thank you. So So I'll work that out with Peter. Hopefully he can attend.
Good.
All right, so we'll turn now to correspondence, the finance report. Did you guys want to go over that, or did you want us to review that at our own, on our own?
No, we'd like you to review it if we'd like to review it with you if you don't mind. So periodically we will bring these to you. I know at the municipal level, you're probably used to getting these at the following the end of a quarter. You know, we'll look to do more of that in the future. So, but you know, Pauline wanted to bring you our most recent report, so that's for the end of the previous month. You know, from my perspective, I think we're doing relatively well, but I'll ask Pauline to quickly touch on the high points.
Yeah, so recall in January, Jason, you wanted a little bit more extra time, so we made sure we included in the packet for this month. And part of it is that our next executive committee meeting is going to be in May, which will coincide with the budget approval. So, and we'll give you a quarterly report at that time, but it will already be a little late. And then we'll be talking about budget, our budget for the upcoming year. So I wanted to bring this to you so that you would have it. The biggest item of note is that we have the additional 400,000 through for that housing and solid waste planning from and that you see that on the fourth line in the 1.756 million is the state regional services grant money, and that includes the recently passed bill. And I would also echo what Matt said. We are in very good shape. We're in line with budget. It looks a little wonky because of the revenue and expenses lining up. In some cases, you see lots of large negatives, and that's because of the timing difference, because most of our programs are reimbursement programs. So most of the grants we have to submit a reimbursement for, and there's a timing element, especially mid-quarter. And happy to take any questions on it, either now or after people have a chance to review it.
Any questions for Pauline? Okay. Well, if there's nothing else to come before the executive committee, I'd ask for a motion to adjourn.
Mr. Chairman, can I just make one comment?
Yes, sir.
I just would like to recognize the recent passing of Dave Kilbon, who was a longtime member of the policy board and chaired the policy board for 2 terms, representing the town of East Granby. He did recently pass, and the CROG and the CROG policy board in particular are one of his favorite activities and organizations, and unfortunately he did recently pass.
Thank you for highlighting that.
Yeah, we can make note of that at the upcoming board meeting as well. Thank you, John. And our condolences again.
I would move adjournment, Mr. Chairman.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion made by John, seconded by Peter. It's non-debatable. All in favor of adjournment, please say aye.
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 Opposed? All right, folks, have a great day.
Take care, everybody. Thank you all so much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Matt.
Thank you.